They found his body at dawn, collapsed on her grave, his arms wrapped around the cold stone as if he were embracing her one last time. His face pressed against the marble, his lips still curved into the most peaceful smile anyone had ever seen on him. The wild animals that had protected him for years, the lions, the wolves, the deer, the gazelles, they stood guard around his lifeless body. Even in death, they wouldn't leave him. Even in death, they recognized him as something sacred. His lips were still forming her name, Laila. The same name he had whispered 1,000,000 times. The same name that had driven him to the edges of sanity. The same name that had become his breath, his heartbeat, his reason for existing. They called him Majnun, the madman. But he wasn't always mad. Once, he was just a boy named Qays, a beautiful boy with gentle eyes and a poet's soul. A boy who walked into a classroom one ordinary morning and walked out with his heart no longer his own. This is the story of Laila and Majnun. A love that burned brighter than the desert sun. A love that shattered a man's mind and rebuilt it into something otherworldly.
A love that has been told and retold for over 1,000 years, in every language, in every land, because it speaks to something deep inside all of us. The hope that somewhere out there, someone could love us that completely. The fear that we might never find them. And the truth that some loves are simply too powerful for this world to contain. Welcome to When Hearts Collide. Our story begins in ancient Arabia. Picture a world of endless sand dunes rolling toward every horizon, a sky so vast and blue it seems to stretch into eternity, stars so bright at night you could read by their light. In this world, tribes wandered from oasis to oasis, following the water, following the seasons. They lived in magnificent tents that could be packed up and moved in hours. They raised camels and horses that were worth more than gold, and they valued 3 things above all else: honor, poetry, and love. Welcome to When Hearts Collide.
In this world, there lived a powerful chieftain named Saeed. He was the leader of the Banu Amir, one of the most respected tribes in all the land. His tents were legendary, so large that 100 people could feast inside them. His herds numbered in the thousands. His reputation for wisdom and fairness had spread from the mountains in the north to the seas in the south. Kings sent him gifts. Princes sought his counsel. Young warriors dreamed of riding under his banner. But despite all his wealth, all his power, all the respect of nations, Saeed's heart carried a deep emptiness. He had no heir. For 20 years he and his beloved wife had hoped. They had done everything they could think of. They had given charity to every beggar who crossed their path. They had helped every widow, every orphan, every stranger in need. "Perhaps it is not meant to be," his wife would whisper on the hard nights, when hope seemed furthest away. "Do not lose faith," Saeed would reply, though his own faith was wearing thin. "The universe has a plan for us. We must trust it."
And then, when they had almost given up, their patience was rewarded. A son was born. The celebrations lasted for an entire month. Feasts were held every night. Musicians played until dawn. Poets composed verses celebrating the birth of the chieftain's heir. Gold and silver were distributed to the poor. They named him Qays. From the moment he opened his eyes, there was something different about this child, something that made people stop and stare, something that seemed to glow from within him. His beauty was otherworldly. Even as an infant, His features were so perfect, so harmonious, that visitors would gasp when they saw him. But it was his eyes that truly set him apart. They were deep, deeper than any child's eyes should be, as if an ancient soul had taken residence in this tiny body, as if he had lived 1,000 lives before and remembered all of them. An old woman came to see the child on the 7th day after his birth.
She was known throughout the region as a woman of wisdom, someone who could see things others could not. She looked at the baby for a long, long time. Then she turned to Saeed. "What do you see?" Saeed asked eagerly. The old woman chose her words carefully. "This child has been given a heart unlike any I have ever seen. A heart with an infinite capacity for love. Most hearts can only hold so much. They protect themselves. They hold back. They guard against pain. But this child's heart has no walls, no limits, no protection." Saeed beamed. "That is a blessing, surely." "Perhaps." The old woman did not smile. "But remember this. A candle gives light, but it also burns. Water gives life, but it can also drown. This child's gift is also his danger. A heart that loves without limits can be destroyed by that love." She looked at the baby one more time. "Watch over him, Saeed. Guard him carefully, because when he loves, and he will love, it will be with an intensity that could either lift him to the heavens or burn him to ashes." Saeed laughed off the warning. What father wouldn't want a son who loved deeply? What parent would fear a child with a big heart? He would remember her words later, when it was far too late. As Qays grew, the old woman's words seemed to be nothing but superstition. He was a happy child, gentle, kind. He never fought with other children. He never raised his voice in anger. He seemed to float through life with a permanent sense of wonder at everything around him. But he was different. While other boys his age learned to ride horses and practice with swords, skills a chieftain's son would need, Qays showed no interest in such things. Instead, he would sit alone for hours, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and red. He would lie on his back at night, counting stars, making up stories about them. He would listen to the traveling poets who visited their camp, memorizing their verses, analyzing their rhythms, trying to understand how words could be arranged to make people laugh or cry. And he wrote. Even as a young child, before he could properly hold a pen, he was scratching words into the sand. Little verses, little observations, little windows into a mind that saw the world differently than everyone else.
His father watched this with growing concern. "My son," Saeed said one evening, finding Qays sitting alone outside the camp, watching the stars emerge one by one. "Why do you not spend time with the other boys? Why do you not learn the skills you will need to lead our tribe?" Qays looked at his father with those impossibly deep eyes. "I am learning, father." "Learning what? How to watch the sky?" "I am learning to feel." Qays turned back to the stars. "I am learning to see the beauty in things. I am learning that there is something more to life than horses and swords and power." "And what is that something?" Qays was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know yet," he finally said. "But I think I will recognize it when I find it. I think it will be the thing that makes everything else make sense." Saeed didn't understand, but he loved his son. "Very well," he said. "Continue your learning. But tomorrow you will also begin attending school with the other noble children. It is time you learned to be among people your own age." Qays nodded obediently. He had no way of knowing that tomorrow would be the last ordinary day
of his life. The school was held in a simple stone building near the central well of the settlement. It was where children of all the noble families gathered to learn the essential skills: reading, writing, mathematics, and, most importantly, the art of poetry. In that culture, a person who could not compose verse was considered incomplete, no matter how wealthy or powerful they might be. On his first day, Qays dressed carefully. He was nervous. He had spent so much time alone that he didn't know how to behave around other children. His mother kissed his forehead at the entrance to their tent. "Just be yourself, my son. That is enough." "What if they don't like me?" She smiled gently. "Then they don't deserve you." Qays walked to the school slowly, his heart beating fast. The building seemed to grow larger as he approached, more intimidating. He could hear voices inside, laughter, chatter, the sounds of children who already knew each other, who already had their groups and friendships. He was an outsider. He stepped through the doorway. The room was filled with children his age, boys on one side, girls on the other, as was proper. Some looked up at him when he entered. He saw curiosity in their eyes. Some whispered to each other. He tried to make himself small, invisible. He found an empty seat in the corner and sat down quickly, keeping his eyes on his desk. But even with his eyes down, he felt something, a strange sensation, like warmth spreading through his chest, like someone had lit a fire inside him that he hadn't known was there. Slowly, almost against his will, he raised his head, and he saw her. She was sitting on the girls' side of the room, surrounded by other girls who seemed to be competing for her attention. But she wasn't looking at them. She was looking at him. Her name was Laila. He would learn that later. The name meant night in their language, and nothing had ever been more perfectly named. Her hair was the color of midnight. It fell in waves around her face like dark water. Her skin was the soft brown of desert sand at dusk. Her eyes were what stopped his heart. They were deep, dark, filled with intelligence and curiosity, and something else, something he recognized, though he couldn't have said why. They were the eyes of someone who was also searching for something. Qays forgot to breathe. The world around him disappeared. The other students, the walls, the ceiling, the sound of the teacher's voice. Everything vanished except her face, her eyes, that moment. Time stopped. And in that frozen instant, something happened that would define the rest of his life. He fell in love. Not the gentle, gradual love that grows over time. Not the comfortable love that builds from friendship and shared experiences. No, this was something else entirely. This was a lightning strike, an earthquake, a flood, a force of nature that swept away everything in its path and left only itself behind. In the space of a single heartbeat, Qays went from being a boy who wondered what he was searching for to a man who had found it. And he knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, beyond reason, beyond anything he could explain, that he would love this girl until the day he died, and beyond. Laila looked at him for another moment. Then she smiled, just slightly, just the barest curve of her lips. But to Qays, it was like the sun rising. The days that followed were both wonderful and agonizing. Wonderful because he got to see her every day. He got to watch her walk into the classroom, her robes flowing behind her. He got to hear her voice when she answered the teacher's questions, a voice like music, like poetry set to sound. Agonizing because he couldn't speak to her. The rules were strict. Boys and girls did not interact. Any direct communication would be considered improper, a scandal that could shame both their families. So Qays loved her in silence. But silence, for a poet, is impossible. He began to write. Not the practice verses he had composed before, Technical exercises, clever wordplay, nothing more. These were different. These poems poured out of him like blood from a wound, like water from a spring, like the confessions of a dying man. I have searched the entire sky and found no star as bright as her eyes. I have crossed the endless desert and found no oasis as refreshing as her smile. I have lived my whole life and never truly lived until I saw her face.
He would write these poems in the margins of his schoolwork. He would scratch them into rocks on his way home. He would whisper them to the wind at night, hoping somehow they would reach her. And then, one day, he had an idea. He arrived at school early, before anyone else. He found her desk and slipped a small piece of paper underneath, a poem, his best one, unsigned but unmistakable in its meaning. Then he retreated to his corner and waited. Laila arrived. She sat down. She reached for her writing materials, and she found the paper. Qays watched her read it. He watched her eyes widen. He watched a blush spread across her cheeks. And then his heart nearly stopped. She looked up, directly at him. Their eyes met across the room, and she smiled again. This time the smile was different, warmer, more knowing. This time the smile said, "I know it was you, and I feel the same way." From that day forward, they began their secret correspondence. Poems left on desks, notes hidden in borrowed books, verses scratched into the sand near the path she walked. They never spoke, not once. The rules forbade it, but they didn't need to speak, because in their poems, they said everything.
Love, however secret, cannot stay hidden forever. Especially love like theirs, a love that blazed so bright it was visible from miles away. The whispers started small. Have you noticed how the Syed's son stares at the chieftain's daughter? He can't take his eyes off her. And she's just as bad. She blushes whenever he looks at her. It's improper. Someone should say something. But the whispers were like seeds scattered by the wind. They took root. They spread. They grew into something that couldn't be ignored. The teachers noticed. They saw Qays's distraction, the way his attention would drift to the girls' side of the room no matter what the lesson was. They found his poems, scraps of paper that fell from his books, verses scratched into his desk. For her, I would cross oceans. For her, I would climb mountains. For her, I would fight armies. For her, I would die gladly, and count myself fortunate to have had something worth dying for. The other students noticed. They saw the glances, the hidden smiles, the way both of them would find excuses to walk past each other, their fingers almost but never quite touching. They started calling him a name behind his back. Majnun.
The madman. Because who else but a madman would be so obvious? Who else would risk scandal for the sake of love? The servants noticed. They found the poems he had discarded, drafts that weren't perfect enough. They passed them around, reading them aloud, sighing over the romantic words. And finally, inevitably, the parents noticed. Laila's father was named Mahdi. He was a proud man, a hard man, a man who had built his family's reputation through decades of careful alliances and strategic decisions. To Mahdi, his daughter was not just a daughter. She was an asset, a treasure to be invested wisely. Her marriage would determine the future of their entire family. He had plans for her. Powerful plans. Important plans. Plans that did not include some lovesick boy who wrote poetry. The night he found out, Mahdi stormed through the camp like a sandstorm. He found his daughter sitting with her mother, working on embroidery as was proper for a noble girl. "Leave us," he commanded his wife. She looked at his face, dark with fury, and left without a word. Laila's hands began to tremble, but she kept her face calm. "Is it true?" Mahdi's voice was deadly quiet. "Is it true that you have been conducting yourself improperly with the Sayyid's son?"
"Father, Is it true that you have been exchanging love letters with him? That the entire settlement is talking about you? That my daughter, has become the subject of gossip and ridicule?" Layla forced herself to meet his eyes. "We have done nothing wrong," she said. "We have never spoken. We have never touched. We have simply what? Simply loved each other." The slap came so fast she didn't see it coming. Layla pressed her hand to her stinging cheek, her eyes filling with tears. "You will not speak of love," Mahdi said, his voice shaking with rage. "A girl your age knows nothing of love. You know only foolishness, only childish fantasy." "It's not fantasy. What I feel is real." "Enough." Mahdi took a deep breath, trying to control himself. "From this moment forward," he said, "you will not leave this tent without my permission. You will not go to school. You will not receive visitors. You will not send messages to anyone, especially not to that boy. Father, please. And if I ever hear that you have had any contact with him, any contact, I will make you wish you had never been born." He turned to leave, then stopped at the tent's entrance. "I am doing this for your own good, Layla. One day, you will thank me." He left.
Layla sat alone in the silence, her cheeks still burning, her heart breaking. She didn't cry. Not yet. She was saving her tears. Qays knew nothing of what had happened. He went to school the next morning as always, a new poem hidden in his sleeve, his heart light with anticipation. But when he walked into the classroom, her seat was empty. He waited. Surely she was just late. Surely she would come. Hours passed. She didn't come. He went home in a daze. She'll be there tomorrow, he told himself. She has to be. But she wasn't there the next day either. Or the next. Or the next. A week passed. 2 weeks. Qays stopped sleeping. He would lie awake all night, staring at the ceiling of his tent, wondering what had happened. He stopped eating. Food tasted like sand in his mouth. He stopped writing. What was the point of poetry without someone to write it for? Finally, when he felt like he was going to lose his mind, he grabbed one of the other students and demanded answers. Where is she? Where is Layla? The boy looked at him with pity. Haven't you heard? Her father found out. About the poems. About everything.
Qays felt the blood drain from his face. He's locked her away. She's not allowed to leave her tent. And they say... The boy hesitated. What? What else? They say her father is looking for a husband for her. Someone suitable. Someone who definitely isn't you. Qays didn't hear the rest. He was already running. He ran through the settlement like a man possessed. He didn't care who saw him. He didn't care what they thought. He didn't care about honor or scandal or reputation. He only cared about her. He ran until he reached Layla's family's camp, and then he stood there, his chest heaving, staring at the large tent where he knew she was being held. "Layla!"
His voice echoed across the desert. "Layla, I'm here! I'm here!" Guards appeared almost immediately. Servants came running. "Get away from here, boy! I need to see her, just for one moment, please. Are you mad? Her father will kill you." But Qays pushed past them, trying to get closer. "Layla, can you hear me? I love you. I will always love you." And then, from inside the tent, he heard it. Faintly, almost too soft to hear, but unmistakable.
Qays, her voice, calling his name. Everything else disappeared. The guards, the servants, the danger. He pushed forward with strength he didn't know he had. He made it 3 steps, 4, and then something heavy struck him from behind. He fell to the ground, the world spinning around him. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was a flutter of fabric at the tent's entrance. She had tried to come out to him. Despite everything, despite her father's threats, despite the danger, she had tried. When Qays woke up, he was in his father's tent. His head throbbed, his body ached. His father sat beside him, his face etched with worry. "What were you thinking?" Saeed demanded. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Qays sat up slowly. "I love her, father." "Love?" Saeed shook his head. "You're young. You don't know what love is. I know that without her, I am nothing. I know that she is the reason I exist. I know that I would rather die than live in a world where I can never see her again." There was something in Qays's voice that made Saeed stop. Something that frightened him.
"Listen to me," Saeed said carefully. "I will go to her father. Tomorrow. I will ask for her hand in marriage. It's the proper way. If he agrees, you can have her." Hope flickered in Qays's eyes. "But you must promise me that until I return, you will stay away from their camp. You will not cause any more scenes. Can you do that?" "Yes, father, yes." "Good. Rest now." For the first time in weeks, Qays slept peacefully. He dreamed of her. The next morning, Saeed gathered a formal delegation. He assembled gifts, gold, jewels, fine fabrics, the best horses from his stable, everything that would be expected from a powerful chieftain making a serious proposal. He arrived at Mahdi's camp with all proper ceremony. Mahdi received him coldly. "I know why you're here," he said before Saeed could speak, "and my answer is no." Saeed felt his heart sink. "But your son has made a fool of himself and my daughter. Everyone is talking about them. Do you know what they're calling him?" Saeed shook his head. "Majnun, the madman. The entire region thinks your son is insane, and you expect me to give my daughter to a madman? He's not mad, he's just young and in love. He screamed at my tent like a lunatic. He tried to break through my guards. That is not love, that is obsession, and I will not give my daughter to an obsessed fool."
Saeed tried everything. He offered more gold. He offered political alliances. He offered to double the bride price. Mahdi refused everything. "My decision is final," he said. "Now leave my camp, and tell your son that if he ever comes near my daughter again, I will consider it an act of war." Saeed returned home with a broken heart. He found Qays waiting for him, his eyes bright with hope. "Father, what did he say?" Saeed couldn't meet his son's eyes. He refused. The hope in Qays's face died. "He called you Majnun. He said everyone is calling you that now." Majnun. Madman. The word echoed in Qays's head like a curse. He said if you go near Layla again, he will consider it war. Qays stood very still. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the camp, into the desert,
and he never came back.
Days passed. Search parties were sent out. The best trackers followed his footprints through the sand. They found traces of him, torn cloth caught on rocks, words scratched into stone, places where he had clearly slept under the stars. But they never found him. And then the stories started coming in. A merchant reported seeing a wild figure in the deep desert. He was walking alone, barefoot. His clothes were in tatters. His hair had grown long and wild. He looked like a ghost. What was he doing? Talking, but not to me, to something I couldn't see, and writing. He was writing in the sand, words and words and words. What words? Her name, over and over. Laila, Laila, Laila. More stories followed. A shepherd found him sitting among a pack of wolves, and the wolves weren't attacking him. They were sitting beside him like obedient dogs. A group of travelers heard someone singing in the moonlight, the most beautiful, heartbreaking songs they had ever heard. An old woman claimed to have seen him standing perfectly still on top of a sand dune, his arms spread wide, as if embracing the wind itself.
The boy named Qays was gone. In his place was Majnun, the madman. But here is what the stories didn't understand. Majnun was not mad. Or rather, he was mad in the way that fire is mad, the way that storms are mad, the way that the sun is mad. He had been consumed by something so powerful, so all-encompassing, that it had burned away everything else. His identity, his needs, his connection to the human world. All that remained was love, pure, absolute, undiluted love. And in a world that feared such intensity, such purity, such complete devotion, that love was called madness. Let me describe what Majnun's life was like in those years of wandering. He had no home, no tent, no shelter. He slept wherever exhaustion found him, under trees, in caves, on the bare sand beneath the stars. His clothes fell apart piece by piece, until he was left with barely enough to cover himself.
His hair grew long and tangled, matted with dust and wind. His skin darkened under the relentless sun. His feet hardened until they could walk on sharp rocks without feeling pain. To anyone who saw him, he looked like a wild creature, more animal than man. But inside he had never been more human. Because inside he carried something that most people spend their whole lives searching for and never find. Absolute certainty. He knew with every fiber of his being that he loved Laila, that he would always love Laila, that loving Laila was what he had been created to do. Most people live their entire lives uncertain of their purpose, uncertain of their path, uncertain if they're making the right choices. Majnun had no such uncertainty. His purpose was clear. His path was written. His only task was to love. And so he did. Every moment of every day, with every breath he took.
Deep in the desert, Majnun wandered. He had stopped eating. What was food to a man who fed on memories? He had stopped sleeping. What were dreams to a man who lived inside one? He had stopped speaking to humans. What were their words compared to the poetry that constantly filled his head? But he was not alone. The animals of the desert had found him. First came a wolf. Thin and hungry, it approached him cautiously. Majnun looked at it without fear. "You are alone too," he said softly. "You know what it means to howl at the moon, calling for something that doesn't answer." The wolf sat down beside him. More animals came. Lions, deer, gazelles, birds of every kind. They gathered around him like subjects around a king. They followed him as he wandered. They lay beside him when he stopped to rest. It was as if they recognized something in him, some purity, some truth, that made them trust him completely. Travelers who witnessed this were amazed. "He has become something more than human," they whispered.
Perhaps they were right. And still, every night, Majnun would climb to the highest point he could find, face the direction where he knew Laila must be, and pour out his heart in poetry. "I have no body anymore. This flesh is just a memory. I have no mind anymore. These thoughts belong to her. I have no soul anymore. It lives wherever she lives. All that wanders this desert is love, looking for its home." His poems spread across the land like seeds on the wind. Children sang them in the streets. Lovers whispered them to each other. Old men quoted them as wisdom. Scholars studied them for their depth and beauty. Within a year, everyone from one end of the world to the other knew the poetry of Majnun. Let me share some of these poems with you, the words that touched so many hearts. They ask me why I weep. I tell them because I breathe. Each breath is a reminder that I am here and she is there, and the distance between us is an ocean I cannot cross. They ask me why I don't eat. I tell them because I am already full. Full of her memory, full of her face, full of her name. What room is there for bread when my soul is feasting? They ask me why I talk to animals. I tell them because they understand. They know what it means to howl at something beautiful and distant. They know what it means to love without expecting love in return. They call me Majnun. They call me mad. But tell me this, is the moth mad for loving the flame? Is the river mad for seeking the sea? Is the flower mad for turning toward the sun? Then yes, I am mad, and I pray to remain so forever.
And she knew, despite everything, despite the distance, despite the impossibility, that he was still alive, still loving her, still waiting. Saeed was dying of grief. He had lost his only son, not to death, but to something worse, to a love that had consumed him entirely. "There must be something we can do," he begged the wise elders of the tribe, "some way to bring him back." An old man stroked his beard thoughtfully. "There is one possibility. Take him on a sacred journey. Take him to the holiest place our people know. Perhaps there, surrounded by centuries of wisdom and prayer, he will find the peace he seeks." It was a desperate idea, but Saeed was a desperate father. After weeks of searching, they finally located Majnun in the desert. He was sitting on a rock, surrounded by his animal companions, staring at the horizon with empty eyes. "My son," Saeed approached carefully, "please come with me. Let me try to help you one more time." Majnun looked at his father as if seeing a stranger. "Help me how?" "We will go on a sacred journey to a place of great spiritual power. We will seek guidance together. You want to cure me."
I want you to find peace. Majnun was silent for a long moment. Then he stood. "I will come with you, Father, not because I want to be cured, but because I want to make something clear." The journey took weeks. Majnun barely spoke the entire time. He ate only when forced. He seemed to exist in a different world than everyone around him, present in body, absent in spirit. But when they finally arrived at the sacred place, something changed. The ancient walls rose before them, weathered by centuries of wind and time. Pilgrims from every corner of the world gathered there, seeking answers to their questions, peace for their troubled hearts. Saeed felt hope stir in his chest. "Go, my son," he urged. "Approach the sacred place. Ask for guidance. Ask to be freed from this love that is destroying you." Majnun walked forward slowly. The crowds parted around him. Something about his presence, his burning eyes, his otherworldly calm, made people step aside.
He raised his hands, and then he spoke. "I have only one request," he called out, his voice carrying clearly across the silent courtyard. "Only one." Saeed leaned forward eagerly. "Let me love her more." A gasp ran through the crowd. "Not less, more. I did not come here to be cured. I came here to be strengthened. If this love is madness, then let it be the greatest madness ever known. If this love is fire, then let me burn brighter than the sun." Tears streamed down his face. "Do not take her from me. She is all I have. She is the reason I exist. To be freed from this love would be to be freed from my soul. Let me love her forever. In this life, in whatever comes after. For all eternity." When he finished, there was absolute silence. Then, slowly, other pilgrims began to weep. Not from sadness, from recognition. They had never heard anyone express love with such purity, such totality, such fearless devotion. Saeed stood frozen, tears running down his own face. He finally understood. His son was not sick. His son had simply loved too deeply for this world to contain, and there was nothing anyone could do to change that.
Now let me tell you about Laila. Because this story is not just about the man who went mad for love. It is equally about the woman who loved him back, silently, faithfully, against all odds. While the world watched Majnun's dramatic descent with fascination and pity, no one watched Laila. No one saw her tears. No one heard her prayers. No one knew that inside that tent, locked away from everything she loved, a heart was breaking just as completely as Majnun's. Only quietly, invisibly, without the wild poetry to express it. Laila's prison was comfortable on the surface. She had silk cushions, fine carpets, servants to bring her anything she needed. But a beautiful cage is still a cage, and Laila felt every invisible bar. She would sit by the tent's entrance for hours, listening, hoping to hear some news, some rumor, some word about Qays. And sometimes his poems would reach her, carried by children singing in the streets, hummed by merchants passing through, whispered by servants who didn't know she was listening. If I could trade all my tomorrows for one yesterday with her, I would make that trade without a moment's hesitation. She would press her hand to her mouth to keep from crying out. He was still alive. He was still thinking of her.
He was slowly dying for her, and there was nothing she could do. She tried writing back to him. Late at night, when the camp was asleep, she would scratch poems onto scraps of paper. My beloved wanders in the desert, while I am trapped in silk and gold. They think they have caged me, but they have only caged my body. My heart escaped long ago. It walks beside you, through every desert, under every star. Wait for me, my love, even if it takes a lifetime, even if it takes longer. I will find you, in this world or the next. Our souls were created together. They cannot be kept apart forever. She would give these poems to travelers, begging them to find Majnun, to deliver our words. Some of them reached him, and when they did, Majnun would clutch the paper to his chest and weep with joy. She still loved him, despite everything, despite the years, despite the distance. She still loved him. It was enough. It was everything.
Her father had found a suitor. His name was Ibn Salam. He came from a wealthy family. He had a good reputation. He was everything a father could want for his daughter. Everything except the one thing Laila wanted. He wasn't Qays. The marriage is arranged, her father announced one morning. You will be married within the month. Laila felt the world collapse around her. Father, please. I have heard enough. You will marry Ibn Salam and you will forget that madman ever existed. I cannot forget him. I have tried. Every night I close my eyes and see his face. Every morning I wake and his name is on my lips. He is in my blood. He is in my bones. Marrying another man will not change that. Then you will learn to live with it. Her father's voice was cold. The wedding is arranged. It is done. The wedding was a grand affair. Musicians played, guests laughed and feasted. Everyone congratulated the families on such a wonderful match.
Everyone except Laila. She sat through the ceremony like a statue. She spoke the words she was supposed to speak. She made the gestures she was supposed to make. But inside, she was screaming, "This is wrong. This is all wrong. I am supposed to be with him. I am supposed to be with Qays." That night, Ibn Salam came to her tent. He was not a cruel man. He had heard the stories. He knew about Majnun. He knew that he was marrying a woman whose heart belonged to someone else. "I know you don't love me," he said quietly, sitting across from her. Laila looked up at him with surprised eyes. "I know who you love. Everyone knows. Then why did you agree to this?" Ibn Salam sighed. "Because my family wished it. And because I hoped, perhaps foolishly, that in time you might learn to love me too." Laila was silent for a long moment. "I will be honest with you," she finally said. "I will be a faithful wife. I will tend your home. I will honor you in public. But I cannot give you my heart. It was given away long ago, to a boy in a schoolroom, and I cannot take it back." Ibn Salam nodded slowly. "Then I will accept what you can give, and I will hope for the rest." And so they lived together, sharing a home but never truly sharing a life. Arraigned in law, but never in spirit. Two strangers under one roof. Years passed. Many years. Laila grew thinner, paler. The light that had once shone from her eyes dimmed to a faint flicker. She rarely left her tent. She rarely spoke. She spent her days lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering. The way he had looked at her in that classroom. The way his poems had made her feel. The way his voice had sounded when he called her name. "Laila, I'm here, I'm here." Ibn Salam watched her decline with growing sorrow. He had grown to care for her despite everything, despite knowing she would never care for him.
"Is there anything I can do?" he would ask. "Yes," she would reply, the same answer every time. "You can bring him to me." "You know I can't." Then there is nothing. Eventually, Ibn Salam himself began to fade, loving someone who could never love him back. It had poisoned him slowly, year by year. He died on a quiet night, without ceremony, without drama. Laila was finally free. But freedom had come too late. Tradition demanded she mourn for 2 years. 2 years of isolation before she could remarry or even leave her home. 2 more years away from Majnun. Laila tried to wait.
Her body was failing. Her heart was exhausted from decades of silent grief. One night, she called her maid to her bedside. "I had a dream," she whispered. "I saw him, standing on a mountain, reaching out his hand, and I knew it was time. 'My lady, please, you must rest.' 'I have rested enough. I have waited enough.' She smiled, a real smile, the first in years. 'Tell him I'm coming.' She closed her eyes, and Laila was gone. The news spread like fire, from settlement to settlement, from tribe to tribe, from mouth to mouth. Laila was dead. It took days for the news to reach the depths of the desert where Majnun wandered. When he heard it, something extraordinary happened. For years he had moved aimlessly, a ghost drifting through sand, present but not present, alive but not truly living. Now, suddenly, his eyes focused. Clarity returned to them for the first time in decades. "She's gone," he said to his animal companions. "She's gone ahead to wait for me." The animals looked at him. They seemed to understand. For the first time in 40 years, Majnun stood tall, his spine straightened, his eyes focused. He was no longer wandering. He finally had a destination.
"I'm coming, Laila," he whispered. "I'm finally coming." And he began to walk. Not the aimless wandering of before. This was different. This was purposeful, determined, urgent. The animals followed in a great procession. Lions walked beside deer. Wolves walked beside gazelles, as if they too knew this was the final journey, as if they wanted to honor him one last time. He walked through the desert where he had spent so many years. He passed the rocks where he had carved her name. He passed the caves where he had slept. He passed the dunes where he had recited poetry to the stars. Every step was a goodbye. Every footprint was a memory. And still he walked. For 3 days and 3 nights. Without rest. Without food. Without water. His body should have collapsed. By all physical laws, he should have died long before he reached his destination. But love kept him moving.
A simple marker in the sand, white stone, fresh flowers someone had planted around it. Here lies Laila, beloved daughter, faithful wife. May her soul find peace. Majnun fell to his knees. He crawled the last few feet. He reached out and touched the cold stone. "Laila," he whispered. "My Laila, I'm here. I finally found you." He pressed his face against the marble.
I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry we couldn't have the life we dreamed of. Tears flowed from his eyes, the first tears in years. But it doesn't matter now. None of it matters. Because wherever you are, that's where I'm going. He wrapped his arms around the gravestone. The animals gathered around him, forming a protective circle. The lion lay at his feet. The wolves sat nearby, watching. The deer and gazelles kept a respectful distance. The birds landed on nearby rocks, silent sentinels. They had followed him for so many years. They had listened to his poetry. They had witnessed his love. And now they would witness the end. Days passed. He didn't move.
He didn't eat. He simply lay there, holding on to the grave, whispering to her. He told her about the day they met. Do you remember, Layla? That schoolroom? That first moment? I looked up and there you were. And everything changed. Everything. He told her about the poems he had written. Did they reach you? All those words? I sent them on the wind, hoping they would find you. I spoke them to the stars, hoping they would carry them to your ears. He told her about the years of wandering. I wasn't lost, you know. People thought I was lost, but I always knew exactly where I was. I was wherever you were. In my heart, we were never apart. He told her about the animals. They understood, Layla. The lions and the wolves and the deer. They knew what it meant to love completely. They never judged me. They never called me mad. He told her about the sacred journey. I made a promise that day, a promise to love you forever, and I've kept it. Every single day, every single breath. I never stopped loving you, not for one moment. He told her about the life they might have had.
We would have been so happy, Layla. A home of our own, children running around, growing old together, watching the sunset every evening, falling asleep in each other's arms. His voice grew softer, weaker. But maybe this is better. Maybe some loves are too pure for the ordinary world. Maybe we were always meant for something else, something higher. The sun began to rise. Golden light spilled across the desert. It touched the gravestone, making it glow. And it touched Majnun's face. He smiled. For the first time in 40 years, true peace filled his features. I see you, he whispered. I see you waiting for me. You're more beautiful than I remembered. More beautiful than any poem could ever describe. He reached out his hand as if reaching for someone only he could see. I'm coming, my love. I'm finally coming home. He took one last breath, and then he was gone. They found his body later that day. Travelers who came to pay respects at Layla's grave discovered him there. His face was peaceful, more peaceful than anyone had ever seen him.
His arms were still wrapped around the gravestone. His lips were still curved into a gentle smile. They buried him beside her, where he belonged, where he had always belonged. Two graves, side by side, two lovers, finally together. After all those years, after all that waiting, after all that pain, they had found each other. At last. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Because love like theirs doesn't die when the lovers die. It lives on. It grows. It spreads. It touches everyone who hears about it. People began visiting their graves almost immediately. At first, it was just people who had known them. Family members. Childhood friends. People who remembered the beautiful boy who wrote poetry. And the girl with the midnight hair. But then strangers started coming. People who had only heard the stories. People who had memorized Majnun's poems. People who felt somehow that these two graves held something sacred.
They came from everywhere, from distant lands, across mountains and seas, from different cultures and backgrounds, from all walks of life. Lovers came, hoping for blessings on their own relationships. If Laila and Majnun can find each other after all those years, they would say, then maybe there's hope for us too. Heartbroken people came, seeking comfort. If they could endure so much pain and still keep loving, they would say, then maybe I can survive this too. Dreamers came, looking for proof. If love like this actually existed, they would say, then maybe the world is more beautiful than I thought. And everyone left changed. Because standing at those graves, looking at those two simple markers side by side, something happened. You couldn't help but believe. Believe that love was real. Believe that some souls were destined for each other. Believe that even when the world tears two people apart, love will find a way to bring them back together, even if it takes a lifetime, even if it takes longer, even if it takes until death itself. A small shrine was built around the graves, then a larger one, then a place of pilgrimage that people traveled thousands of miles to visit. Every year, on the anniversary of their deaths, a festival is held. People gather from all around. They light candles.
They sing songs. They recite Majnun's poetry. They tell the story to their children, so the children can tell it to their children, so it will never be forgotten. And strange things happen at this festival. People report feeling a presence, a warmth, a sense of being watched by something loving. Some say they see two figures in the moonlight, walking hand in hand, finally together. Some say they hear poetry on the wind, verses no one has ever written down. Some say that if you close your eyes and truly believe, you can feel what Majnun felt, that all-consuming, all-powerful, all-surrendering love. Skeptics dismiss these stories, but the people who have experienced them know the truth. Laila and Majnun are still there, still together, still in love, still watching over everyone who believes in what they represented. Today, more than 1,000 years later, people still tell this story. They tell it in Arabia, where it began. They tell it in Persia, where the greatest poets immortalized it. They tell it in India, where movies and songs celebrated. They tell it in Europe, where Lord Byron called it the Romeo and Juliet of the East. They tell it everywhere, in every language, because it speaks to something universal. The hope that exists in every human heart.
The hope that somewhere out there,
someone could love us that completely. The hope that we are capable of loving that completely ourselves. So what can we learn from Laila and Majnun? We can learn that real love is not about possession. Majnun didn't love Laila because she was his. She was never his. He loved her simply because she existed, because she was worthy of love, because loving her was what he was born to do. We can learn that real love survives everything. Distance couldn't kill it. Time couldn't kill it. Society couldn't kill it. Even death couldn't kill it. Their love exists still in every retelling of their story, in every heart that beats faster at their names. We can learn that real love transforms us. Majnun became more than he was before he loved her. His pain became poetry. His madness became wisdom. His loss became legend. And most importantly, we can learn that real love is worth everything. Every tear Majnun cried. Every year Laila lighted. Every sacrifice they both made. It was all worth it. Because in the end, they found each other. And in the end, love won. I want to leave you with one final thought. Somewhere out there, right now, there are people like Laila and Majnun. People who are separated from someone they love. People who are told their love is impossible. People who are waiting, hoping, praying that somehow, someday, they'll find their way back to each other. If you are one of those people, this story is for you. Don't give up. Don't lose faith. Don't let the world convince you that love like this doesn't exist or that you don't deserve it.
Because Laila and Majnun proved something 1,000 years ago that is still true today. Love always finds a way. It might take longer than you want. It might hurt more than you thought possible. It might require sacrifices you never imagined making. But love always finds a way. Always. Hold on to that. Believe in that. And never, ever stop loving. Because that's what Laila and Majnun taught us. That's their gift to every generation that hears their story. The gift of knowing that love is real. The gift of knowing that love is powerful. The gift of knowing that love is eternal. And the gift of knowing that somewhere, in this world or the next, the one who holds your heart is waiting for you, just as you are waiting for them.